Hello and welcome to Fever Dreams Podcast, episode 14, which is season 3, episode 1. We are recording this live on the 20th March of 2022. I'm your host, Corbin78, and with me are Crindash. Hello, Crin. As well as XypherOrion. Welcome as well. How are you guys doing? Crin, how are you doing?
I am so well. Thank you.
How about our Cypher?
Caffeinated, ready to rock.
I'm happy that we're doing this thing again. We got this back on the rails. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was about time. And as we have a guest, so we can spoil that already next week, I thought it would be a great idea to have a catch-up episode before to get all the topics that have been happening in the meantime since the last cast off our minds. And then we can fully concentrate to our guest that we will have next week. So stay tuned, and Cypher will be talking about that a little bit later. It has been, I think, like 4 months since the last one. It was in November, if I remember correctly.
Too long.
And a lot of stuff has happened.
It's just been too long.
Yeah, a lot of stuff has happened, and we have been playing games. And I like to start those casts with a recap of what we've been playing, especially new stuff, but also reoccurring stuff. Crin, let's start with you. What have you been playing?
Let me get my pancake stuff out of the way first. Elden Ring, of course.
Oh, yeah.
It's been amazing. Really digging it. But I also enjoyed the Souls games. And I grew up with older school games where the games just want to murder you all the time, you know? That they were designed to make you feed more quarters into the machine. So I'm used to this stuff. I'm okay. I swear to God, I'm not getting angry.
Just for the people who don't know Elden Ring, and maybe there aren't any, but I think most people know at least the genre Souls-like games, and it started with the Dark Souls series, which has the reputation to be tough as hell, and if you die, you more or less have to start from the beginning. Maybe not completely from the beginning, but you have to redo stuff. And Elden Ring is
entirely roguelike, but it's brutal.
Yeah, and Elden Ring is now the next kind of iteration. It's now, because the Souls series has been like a straightforward experience, more or less, from one area to the next, one boss to the next. And Elden Ring changed that formula a little bit and is now an open world Souls-like. Is that correct? Because I haven't played it.
Very much. Yeah, you can definitely explore places you have absolutely no business in very easily. But that also makes the speedrunning scene for it has been fascinating, because people have been willing to risk just about anything to be able to get, a few minutes faster on their run. So they've been fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see. They had a patch last week where they fixed a lot of the more abusive things that players were using. But overall, it's been interesting. I'd give Elden Ring 9 out of 10. The story is interesting. They've been hyping that J.R.R. Martin was involved in the writing of the story, and it's some fascinating stuff going on there. So if you're in it for the story, it's worth it. I got plenty of other pancake games I could talk about, but this is Fever, so let's talk about VR stuff. Against came out since the last time we had a podcast. Against is very interesting. There is a custom map scene for it too that has been growing. So it's exciting to see what's happening there. I got into some Half-Life Alyx workshop stuff. Somebody did what they're calling Return to Rapture, which is exactly what it sounds like. They stick you inside Rapture. In Half-Life Alyx.
I've tried that one. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work with the Proton version. Maybe I need to retry that. I was only more or less able.
With it that are...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was more or less able to only play the first level because on the level transitions, it's crashing for me. And
Really?
I hope they can fix it so it works natively on Linux, because Half-Life Alyx does have a native Linux version, and the workshop should totally work, but they have some issues with the Vulkan backend or so, at least on the workshop items. So yeah, I was playing the first level, but the immersion and the combination between the Half-Life Alyx mechanics and VR world, but with the world of BioShock, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh.
So did you play through all the levels of Return to Rapture, or only the peak?
I have not. I've gotten a couple levels into it. Honestly, I'm thinking about skipping to chapter 2. They just released it.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. And it looks like it's a lot cleaner than chapter 1. Chapter 1, I have had some weird errors that are not consistent. Like, I can shut down the game after not having any problems, and then literally the same gaming session, start the game back up, and it'll start complaining that there are missing assets, but everything's loaded into the world and there's nothing missing. But down in the bottom corner of your goggles, you can see it console dumping right in front of your face, missing asset, missing asset, missing asset. And then you reload again and no problems. So I do not know. They've definitely got some issues with it, but it's got potential. It really does. And I love the idea that people are playing with so many of these other gaming concepts and trying to bring them into Alyx. Like that game's got a lot of potential for custom stuff. What about you, Onion? What have you been playing?
Man, honestly, I thought Alyx, the modding scene for Alyx would take off a lot more like the modding scene for Half-Life did back in the day. Recently, I haven't really been playing much flat stuff. I did play one yesterday that I was hoping we could talk about a little bit later, called We Are One. It's a VR puzzle game that uses time loops where you take different positions over the same timeline, and you have to basically kill all the bad guys or shoot all the targets or finish the goal for the puzzle while managing all these different time loops. It's intriguing, and I have a lot of fun with it. But I've been getting into some like custom coffee roasting streams lately. Actually, watching in particular our friend Rage Sack. Yep.
Coffee roasting.
Yeah,
Rage is roasting
coffee roasting. Rage is roasting coffee. And I mean, since he's kind of a friend of ours,
and he's selling coffee too, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he is selling Rage roast.
I bought some Rage roast, and I wanted to show some of the cool.
That's awesome! I didn't realize you got
the amazing stickers. Oh yeah, I didn't know I was getting these. If you're watching the podcast,
so cool.
You can see we have a couple of stickers. So here's the original Rage Pog sticker, right? And they just added a cup of coffee. Like, I thought that's great. You got the Rage star in the background there. You know,
good for you, Rage Sack. That is freaking amazing.
You got Satellite Station in the background there. Yeah,
that's how you monetize, folks. That's how you monetize.
You can barely see it. There's a little bit left in the bottom there, but it is actually really, really tasty. It doesn't taste like the stuff that you buy at the store. It's definitely got some pungent overtones that taste different. And no, it's not civet coffee before you ask.
So
he didn't ask me to promote that or anything. I'm just excited about that.
What kind of roast is it?
I would have to look up exactly what kind of roast. It's a nice medium dark roast. It definitely has some fruity, tasty notes to it. But if you're interested in all that information, you can join the coffee roasting on Rage Sack's Discord.
Yeah, and here am I with my ordinary coffee. At least I'm using a FeVR mug, okay?
If we remember, we'll put a link in the description down below. How about? But yeah, that's what I've been doing lately, and working on Cyberpunks, trying to get some release ready for Quest 2, which is a pain in the butt, and trying to get things working correctly on PC and fixing bugs and everything, getting ready for a soft release sooner-ish.
Well, and I think with that topic, we can transition into some of our community news in the next segment here. Magfest happened in January, and you were in attendance, hyping.
I played games as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can't skip Corbin.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry, Corbin. I am so sorry. What games are you playing these days?
Oh,
Corbin?
you're asking me what games I've been playing. All right, let me talk about all of them. I've recently played a lot of Cyberpunk. That's one of the games that I have on my pile of fame or pile of games, however you want to call it. I don't call it pile of shame because it's not a shame to support developers for awesome games they are putting out there. So I don't see a shame there. The only shame that's in there is that you don't take the time to play them already. But hoarding those games, I mean, you have to be prepared for the retirement. We all know that.
You know what? I feel like Cyberpunk got a bad rap too. Yeah, the last gen console versions were practically useless, but if you had a decent PC, it really was one of the best gaming experiences of the year.
And
it was.
Indeed, they said that already, that you shouldn't get it for the last gen consoles. It's performance-wise not playable. But on PC, it looks like there have been bugs. But there were like no really game-breaking bugs, only immersion-breaking bugs, and that's, I think, okay-ish. And I was playing that, of course, on Linux, and it worked pretty fine. Until patch 1.5 came out, because there, a lot of bugs have been fixed, and the performance got way better. It's incredible. I was using DLSS before. DLSS is the NVIDIA Deep Learning Super Sampling technology, where the game is rendered in a lower resolution, but upscaled again with AI technology to your native resolution or the resolution you have configured. And it looks really good. I mean, depending on the level. Yeah, depending on the level you put into that. So there's a high quality mode, a medium quality, low quality, or whatever. Or they call that different. It's like quality performance or something like that. And performance is the one where the game is rendering in more or less the lowest possible resolution, while quality is
maximize your frame rate.
It's just one resolution lower.
And I really like the performance mode because you can set a target frame rate and it'll bring down your resolution real time depending on performance. So your resolution is scaling all over the place all the time when you're running in DLSS performance mode. If you watch for it real close, you'll notice it happening. But if you're playing a high, fast-paced game that you want that frame rate for, so worth it. So worth it. So do you run with RTX enabled in Cyberpunk?
Not the ray tracing. That doesn't work on Linux at the moment. There's a bug.
I was wondering about that.
I think the transition layer is not ready for that yet. So as I can enable ray tracing, there's a switch for enabling it in general. That does nothing though. But then there is for shadows, for reflections, for one more. There are 3 settings, and it doesn't matter. As soon as I switch any of those, the game crashes. So I'm not using ray tracing.
So you're able to run it without DLSS now.
And now I can run it without DLSS, yes. And with DLSS on the quality mode where it's rendering, so I'm a 1080p gamer, where it's rendering in 720p, it was 60 FPS more or less all the time. The frame times have been a little bit jittery, but it was 60 FPS. It was a smooth experience. And now with the update, the performance got amped up a lot. I can turn off DLSS. And to be honest, I don't even see the difference. I have to really have a side-by-side comparison to tell, okay, this could be DLSS and this is native or so. But other than that, performance is now like no issue. I haven't had many crashes. There was one in or 2 maybe in 80 hours of playtime. So that's not much. That can happen everywhere, and you don't know why. Reloading, the game has very good autosaves, so you don't lose much progress. Totally fine. Yep.
So you're on a 3070 for graphics, right?
Yes.
Nice.
And there is, I've heard, upcoming a VR mod for Cyberpunk.
This is what we need.
Yes and no. It depends.
I would replay that entire game in VR if they did it right. And you know what? I would actually care about the Beat on the Brat mini quests too, if I could do those in VR. How fun would that be?
The thing is, though, it seems to be tight,
Right?
so it probably won't have full controller support. You probably will play it with not VR controller support, but you will probably
With the gamepad.
play it with a gamepad mostly, and it's sad. Yeah, the only game where a mod was really amping up the VR experience so far that I played was the GTFO VR mod. At the moment, it's broken though because they updated to a newer version. It's out of early access GTFO. And there the VR mod is at the moment not working, but the VR mod had full controller support, full controller tracking. The gunplay was great. So that for Cyberpunk would be awesome.
That looked like you were having a great time when I saw you playing that on stream.
It's awesome. I enjoy playing it more in VR than Pancake. And that's only a mod.
It makes me want multiplayer for games like Half-Life Alyx and Boneworks, you know?
I've been saying this for years. Every game needs multiplayer. I don't care if it's shoehorned in co-op. Just do it.
I think the issue is with the complex physics, especially in Boneworks. The net sync issues have got to be an absolute nightmare. Like the more players you add to that scenario, God.
Adding any form of multiplayer.
Same problem's been solved. And the same problem's been solved so many times already. Like, why don't we have template projects for that?
I know it a little bit from Rockfish Games, as I'm a big fan of the Everspace series, and people have been demanding a co-op mode for Everspace. Would be awesome. It would be so awesome. But I mean, they are still an indie team with only a limited amount of employees, like 20 now. They amped up that for Everspace 2. And they said they are interested in doing that, and they hear the community in wanting that, but it would like double, if not even triple, the development time. And that's why it's tricky.
That doesn't even speak to the tech support issues that adding VR support to a title.
Yeah, VR and multiplayer in general.
Multiplayer.
Yeah, and we're talking about, especially when it comes to VR, less multiplayer, but duct taping VR to a game brings with it a certain tech support nightmare that a lot of these companies aren't willing to take on for that 1 or 2% of their player base that might put on the VR goggles. And that makes me sad. That's why the latest Mech Warrior doesn't have official VR support. You know, they flat out said it. They're like, we can't afford to support VR. We would love to do it, but like 2 of you are actually going to use it. So sorry.
Yeah, adding VR to a game.
And I'm like, damn.
It is very tricky. And Rockfish Games did that. I think we've talked about that, but let me reiterate about that really quick. Rockfish added VR mode for Everspace 1. And the game itself is not really suited for VR because it's fast-paced and it's meant to be steered with keyboard and mouse. And if you do the circle strafe in VR, that's completely contrary to anything you know that's cockpit-like. So they got a big backlash for the VR version. People were unhappy with it. There are people having fun with it, no questions. But even me, who loves Everspace, I got motion sick pretty quick in that game.
I've got to be honest. I would do everything in my power to be able to survive that high G maneuver, because that's one of those things everybody daydreams about doing in VR, you know? That was why we were all so hyped about Squadrons, because we imagined doing these physics-defying maneuvers in X-Wings and stuff, and turned out it was just too hard to be that good at that game.
As you mentioned, Star Wars Squadrons, I've been playing that as well, especially as that got now official easy anti-cheat support on Linux. And now I can play it online. I've played the single player before that doesn't need easy anti-cheat, but now it works also online with easy anti-cheat. In VR, it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun.
So are you playing Right. Well, I was about to ask, so are you playing it with HOTAS, or are you playing it with a gamepad, or your...
I was playing it with keyboard and Move Master. Yeah, I was playing it with keyboard and Move Master because I was used to that, because I was playing it before with that. And even, I think I'm not sure if they like recommend it, but they have a good setting for keyboard and mouse. Or for me, it's Move Master and mouse. And I was used to steer that because you can strafe there a little bit as well. And strafing is totally something that's contrary to any HOTAS thingy. I mean, it does in Elite Dangerous, you have a little bit of strafing left and right, but it's slow. It's not a fast thingy. And then, you have your thrusters, your lateral thrusters, where you can do the maneuvers left, right, up, down.
Yep.
And but for Squadrons, it seems that they have a little bit faster movement to the sides as well. And then it's more meant for keyboard and mouse or Move Master and mouse instead of HOTAS. HOTAS works, of course, as well. Or Gamepad works as well.
The game was totally developed for Gamepad. And that was why I stopped playing it multiplayer, because I really wanted to play multi with a HOTAS. But all the Gamepad people just wrecked me. Endlessly wrecked me.
I play with dual sticks, so HOSAS, HOSAS, technically.
Hands-on, stick and stick.
Hands-on. So I got 2 sticks instead, and it works like you would expect. Basically, like it's set up for gamepad, but I've got my whole hands on the on the thumbsticks and my fingers on the buttons, and it works better. But I run into the same problem, like mouse keyboard users and gamepad users. Like it's just designed for that, and you just can't quite get the same like maneuverability with it for some reason.
So I could imagine that if you play for the Everspace VR mode with a HOTAS, it would work probably pretty well. But as soon as you touch a gamepad or a keyboard and mouse where the game was designed for, you get these motion sickness stuff. And, well, it's not a multiplayer title, so you won't have any competitive issues. But in Star Wars Squadrons, of course, you have. The other VR games I played... I played a lot of No Man's Sky because they have this expedition thing going on where it's like a guided tutorial with milestones and phases you have to complete. So everybody who hasn't played No Man's Sky in a while and wants to get back into it, those expeditions are a great experience. They are a timed issue though, so you can only play them for a few weeks and then they're gone. You get some special in-game items if you complete it though. And that works in VR now as well.
I was just about to ask.
And it works really good. Those is one of those games where the later added VR mode is done really well. It's a very enjoyable experience. And you can you are using, they even changed the input completely. You like cannot play it with keyboard and mouse in VR anymore. You want to play it with the controllers, and it has full controller support with the VR controllers. Nice. So when you exit your cockpit, how do you exit your cockpit? You grab the hatch and pull it over, and then you exit the ship. I mean, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's a really cool idea to do it like that.
And stuff like that's really got me excited because let's not kid ourselves. No Man's Sky got that boost not so much because of PC, but because of PSVR. That was the big reason they put the gas into adding those features. And PSVR, no matter how much we want to hate on the first gen of it because of the quality of the tracking and things like that, it really opened up VR to a demographic that otherwise wouldn't have touched it. $200 to $300 to duct tape VR onto a game console you've already got. That was huge. Tons of people bought it just for the Gran Turismo bundle, and we've got Moss 2 coming.
Moss 2? I haven't played the first one yet, but I heard very good things about it. Totally something.
Is Moss 2 purported to do the American Sign Language thing like the original one did?
They're not even talking about it anymore, and I know what you're talking about, and that bums me out too.
It's so disappointing because that is like one of the biggest things about Moss is that they incorporated American Sign Language into the animation so that when Moss was talking to you, deaf people can actually watch the screen and see what's being said. It was awesome. Like more games need to be able to do that. And I think, especially since we have VR now and the first thing that we have appearing in VR is hands, why can't we animate that? Like I don't personally know ASL, but I've been thinking more and more about I should just learn this,
And with a tool like VR, wouldn't be very hard to set up a tool to teach people ASL as part of a game.
There's I actually found one on SideQuest for learning like basic American Sign Language.
Nice, using the hand tracking. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's really, really nice. They're using VR for so many different like accessibility things. We could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah,
That's something we could do a topic on too. Just as streamers, is how do we add closed captions to our stream in an effective way? That's a big deal. That's an entire community that is just being overlooked when it comes to Twitch. And there are some high profile streamers that are doing an okay job making sure they have closed captions, but finding software that can do it real time is really hard.
And you have to take the time to train your voice recognition software too, because the more time you take to train your voice recognition software, the better it can actually transcribe for you.
Yeah.
So that part is on the streamer, but the rest of it, the voice recognition itself, you're right, it's very difficult to find something that works well.
Yeah, let me finish with one last game I played in VR, which now works really well, and that's Elite Dangerous. At least the Horizons version. So there's Odyssey, which is now a newer one.
VR for nice.
No. The walking around, you will still see a flat screen in front of you, the theater mode, and can play it in VR, but that's not the same. Flying with your ship is still as it was in VR with Horizons. But I've been playing. Awesome. Yeah, I've been playing because there have been several updates for the Linux guys. There is now, for the Linux NVIDIA user guys, there is async reproduction now working, which is helping a lot with performance in games. And the driver updates are now mitigating the issue that async reproduction causes the game to crash. So I have had now several hours of stable VR experience in Elite Dangerous where it was like crashing once an hour before. I mean, that's still enjoyable. If it will crash in an hour and then I reboot it and it all works again for another hour, that's okay.
Make sure to fast save a whole bunch.
But being able to play that in a 4-hour session without a crash, that's new and it's amazing. Okay, that have been mostly the games I've been playing often in the last few weeks and months. There was also a little bit of Pistol Whip, Beat Saber, Synth Riders, and we will talk about the updates about those games in a little bit. And one new game that's called Cyberpunk, which is a little bit like Against, where you can switch between slicing with a sword and shooting with pistols. It's in early access. There are just, I think, maybe 10 songs, I guess less, 8 songs or so in the game yet. It's a Russian developer, I just realized. And it's still in development. So we have to see how that works out. I just realized, okay. But I played that and the music was good and the experience wasn't bad either.
Nice. We went to a Russian bar last night and we weren't even thinking about it until we were on the way there. And we're like, oh yeah, this place is Russian. Is this going to be awkward? It wasn't awkward. Everything was fine. But
okay. Yeah. Let's get to the FIFA community news. So Crin started to mention. Please continue.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with Magfest here. So Onion.
Yeah, Magfest. You went to Magfest this past year. Yeah.
Tell us.
It was, if I'm not mistaken, 10,000 people strong. The COVID restrictions they had for requirement to entry, everyone had to be fully vaccinated and boosted, and everyone had to wear a mask the entire event. And we hardly had any issues whatsoever. There was a grand total of 60 people reported with COVID symptoms, and way less than that actually reported actually having COVID. So everything ended up being super isolated. Everyone was really good about keeping sanitary. I was there helping show off Cyberpunks. So we had 2 actual Quest 2 units that we were making sure to wipe off with sanitary wipes and everything. Every single time it changed hands, every single time it changed faces. And basically, what's funny is we got reports that COVID came to our booth, but not to our booth. You know what I mean? Like it's like you got to our booth and we just killed it and it died.
Good to hear that those
and we're great.
You guys stopped COVID dead in its tracks.
Yeah, dead in its tracks. It was
good to hear that it was effectful.
Heck you, COVID.
Had some great feedback on the game. If you'd like to check out the game, you can wishlist it on Steam now if you want to. It might help us out a little bit. Still working on it though. And see, the rest of Magfest was amazing. A lot of really great video game related bands and music acts. Some personal friends of mine, Super Guitar Bros, were there. Had a great set. So they had Aoxys, Megaran, they had the Megas. They were great. I got to see them live. Just go check out the Magfest website if you want to see what all went on this year. But it was a great time. It's the Music and Gaming Festival out of Maryland. And like, if you have an opportunity to go to Magfest, if you like video games, if you like music, if you like video game music, all of those things, definitely go book a ticket and check it out. It was very safe this past year and highly recommended. So
really good to hear.
That's all I got to say about Magfest. Yeah.
Do you want to spend some more time talking about Cyberpunks?
I mean, yeah, Cyberpunks. I don't have anything prepared at the moment, so no.
Fair enough. So I did throw a link into. I did throw a link into the Twitch chat if you're watching the live stream. Please go ahead and check out Cyberpunks.
Yeah, so it's basically, we call it melee combat at a distance. It's like you're fighting with an opponent at the rooftop, and you have to. You can power yourself up by memorizing different slash combos. So the idea was kind of sort of like putting two, VR rhythm game players, wink wink, against each other, and seeing what happens. And it turned into basically one of the first fighting games in VR. So don't miss it. We're trying to make all of our mechanics and everything super tight, so everything feels really good. And the combat right now is already really fun. Like I said, at Magfest, all of our feedback was awesome. So hopefully we've got some things moving on there. And at some point, I'll be giving away some masks. I know they're getting a little outdated now, but I'll be giving away some masks on my stream just for game stuff.
Fancy.
Okay.
We've got South by Southwest and GDC on our agenda here, but I really don't have any talking points for either of those. GDC is next week. Mentioning. Yeah. So South by Southwest did happen this week. I haven't had a chance to go over everything that was actually talked about in the conferences there. So maybe we'll touch on that again during the next stream. GDC is going to be interesting. There's a lot of VR happenings planned for GDC, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were some developers holding back on CES and waiting for GDC. So hopefully this next week we're going to see some fun stuff announced. Typically,
the Game Developers Conference. Right.
Yep. And typically we see some interesting games get announced, and every once in a while some fun VR hardware announcements. There is a kind of dark horse that showed up in the haptic scene. I honestly don't know how I missed these guys. They were at CES this year with demo units, and they're starting this Kickstarter off, I believe, this next week. They're called Skinetic, and those of you who are familiar with FeVR probably saw XypherOrion stream where he was demonstrating Shockwave. And I find the Skinetic thing interesting because they're claiming to have a lot of the same features that Shockwave has. More importantly, the higher fidelity haptics, like being able to feel individual raindrops and explosions radiating into you depending on which direction you're facing relative to the explosion, So, I mean, these guys look like they're coming out swinging to compete with the haptics. So hopefully we see more on that in GDC next week.
Are they going to have a live stream, or do you have to be there personally to witness all the things? Because some of the events,
I think we're going to be looking for content creators to give us visibility into it, much like CES. Yeah. So here's the big one. And I don't know if anybody's heard anything about this. I sure haven't. But TwitchCon, we have dates, the 16th through 17th for Amsterdam, July, and the 7th through 9th of October in San Diego. What's interesting is they haven't announced dates for when tickets go on sale yet. I find that interesting because we're starting to get real close to that July event.
Yeah, I think probably because of the what they learned from the last time planning that and then the pandemic hitting, it can change in a short time that it's not allowed to travel anymore or whatever. And from what we see with the current variant coming up, even though regulations are lifting, maybe that will cause another big wave where they all have to revert all the things. And that's why I guess they are cautious right now. But that's only my guess, I don't know. But yeah, we are getting close to that date. And if you can't order the tickets, nobody will go there. So we will see how that works out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people already have hotels, airfare planned out. We've booked our accommodations, myself included. I'm ready for San Diego. I just need to spend my $40 or whatever on my TwitchCon tickets.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, how exciting is it going to be for us to be able to get together again? Like, it's been too long. I've never gotten to go to one of these. I've been involved in a couple smaller meetups with some FeVR people, but otherwise.
Yeah, I wanted the TwitchCon in 2020 would have been the first TwitchCon I ever would have gone to, and that didn't happen. And a lot of FeVR people would have been willing to meet there, and it would have been a great opportunity to meet a lot of people in person. Did not happen. Yeah. Let's see how it will turn out with the next one.
We were totally going to be in Amsterdam for 2020. That was going to be our TwitchCon. I was so ready for it. It was going to be great. And God, the lockdown hit us so hard that year. And I wish I could make Amsterdam this year, but it's just going to be San Diego.
Yeah, I have to see if I can make it to Amsterdam this year, as there are no tickets yet, and we totally don't know how the current situation will change until then. We just have to wait.
So how far do you actually live from the convention center it'd be held at in Amsterdam? Is it plausible for you to drive out?
I would be able to go there in like less than a day, but it would be, I guess, like 8 to 10 hours drive by car. I would probably go there with a plane, by plane. That's faster, cheaper, less stressful.
Dude, it's Europeans, man. They do not do 6 and 8 hour drives the way we do here in the States.
I know.
It's
like
all a little bit more.
It's the norm for us. Yeah.
It's a little bit more packed here. So yeah, it would be possible, of course, but it would be a little bit more tricky because then I would have to take a day off work or even like several days off work. And if I can go there by plane within a few hours instead of driving more than half of the day or so, then yeah, it's possible to get there quick enough and even return on the same weekend or so. But yeah, as said, we have to see how that develops. Alrighty, we have one big thing that we were announcing already the last cast, and it would have been so good for the next cast, but all things changed. We have something from our FeVR community member, Nate, and he released a bot called StreamerBot. That's also the URL for the bot where you can find it, and it's like the one and only bot you will ever need. It can do anything you can imagine, because not only that, it has a lot of features where that are common among streamers, like alerts for followers, for subs, triggering events through channel points. So there's a channel points handler included, which was the original how this bot started. But and that's what makes it really, really powerful. It has built in a C# compiler. And with that, you can extend the bot to anything you can imagine. And that's really amazing. it has, I don't know, maybe Live can talk about that. How many downloads does it take?
It's currently limited to 32-bit. Currently,
that's not no. What do you mean with limited?
There's a 64-bit build that just launched, but there are some issues with it.
Oh, did he officially launch it? Okay,
but what do you mean it's limited to 32-bit? Because that's not really an issue.
Limited to 32-bit. I was doing some testing with some of the background stuff, and we discovered that it required 64-bit something to work. What I was trying to achieve.
So when connecting to other software,
limited. That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm trying to connect to specifically Steam VR. In order to interface with Steam VR, it required a 64-bit interface.
Okay.
It was a little bit limited on that. But
what is the greatest?
Last week,
it's not public yet.
No, it's the 64-bit version is currently at alpha. It will be version 0.1.8. What's a really big deal about that is, though, that Nate was so kind to update the internal WebSocket server he was using. And now it also works on Linux. And there, actually, it was even helpful that it was 32-bit, because all the Wine environment is very well proven, rock solid on the 32-bit side. 64-bit mostly works, but there can be some quirks.
WebSockets are one of the big issues that still exist with the 64-bit build, and I'm pretty sure that's why it's not public yet. Life was demonstrating some very interesting issues with it on stream last week.
I see.
Yeah, but nevertheless,
it's really important to note that Nate is a one-man monster team by himself.
Indeed.
And all the things that he's achieved with this tool are mind-blowing. Considering
he does have some help from the community. I thought like GeoSim and
true. But I mean, what it became in order to start building that community was, and it's just grown from there because of the community. But it's just amazing, just amazing. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that Nate's awesome. Okay.
Yes, Nate's he has put a lot of effort into this.
Nate is great. Okay.
He is.
Nate is great. He hates it when you say that, but it's true.
You can alter that to Nate the Sassy Grenade. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Nevertheless, the bot, I'm not going to lie, I'm a developer myself, but it has a little learning curve. Because how you have to use the bot, there are tutorials out there from VR Flat, from Andy Lippy, from Nutty, from who else? But there are tutorials out there. You can find even German tutorials. So not only German tutorials, but there are for several countries, for their native language, there are tutorials, because this is a bot that's used worldwide already. It has several thousand downloads. The last number I heard, and that was already a month ago, was 3,000. They hit 3,000 downloads. And imagine 3,000 users, 3,000 streamers using StreamerBot and replacing their touch portal.
Huge.
It's incredible. And
like you can most of their process flow. It's crazy.
Yeah, they changed all that to StreamerBot. So if you get into that, and once you realize that there is a separation between actions and the actual actions that are going to happen, it's just something you have to wrap up in your mind. But once you get around that, you can do like anything with it. And Nate has thought about so many things that you might want to do with it, and probably it's already in there. And if it's not, you can reach out to people. There is even a StreamerBot Discord. You can find all the links, the wiki, the Discord, the webpage on StreamerBot. That's the URL as well. And you can expand it with anything you like. And that's the real power the bot has.
It's literally a tool built by dreamers for dreamers. Like, no joke. He took everything that everybody was crying about wanting to be able to do easily on their streams, and he's like, oh yeah, that does sound like a good feature. And
boom, let's do it, he said. Let's do it. And he made it become.
And all you got to do is spend a few hours with it and figure it out. And man, the magic. especially if you start playing with other interesting applications like Polypop. I feel like Polypop is something we need to talk about. That one is fascinating. I want to spend more time with it and actually do something with it.
We should do a whole episode on just stream tools, I think. There's plenty out there to talk about.
Yeah, and StreamerBot will be totally part of that. So, for example, I was able to do with that, Twitch has somehow changed how they announce or how they trigger hosts if somebody is hosting you. So Stream Elements, for example, doesn't give you a notification for that anymore, and that's why you can't have an alert, at least not from Twitch themselves. So, hello, there's StreamerBot. Streamlabs has an API, and you can trigger that alert yourself. And StreamerBot does get that event still. I don't know why Streamlabs doesn't get it anymore, but you can now get that event in Streamer.bot and trigger the alert on Streamlabs. And you have restored a feature that's gone. And that's done with Streamer.bot. That's amazing.
Liv's chat application, I'm still seeing hosts coming through it when I play Beat Saber and stuff.
Yeah, somehow they are.
I didn't realize Streamlabs was broken on it. I've been noticing a strange delay on the Streamlabs
it's like
notifications too.
How Twitch announces them now. And somebody was reaching out to Twitch and Streamlabs, and Twitch has officially replied to him that they are not like broadcasting or announcing hosts with less than 3 viewers anymore. So if you would have a host with more, it would work. But often people, to show their support, their appreciation, they host you even though they haven't been streaming before. But it helps, because if you are recommending a streamer by a host, then you might get more visibility. And that even works if he's hosting, or the streamer is hosting you with 0 viewers. But that's not announced anymore, and you can't, if you don't see that somewhere, how would you say thank you? So you can restore that functionality, for example, with Streamer.bot.
Crane makes a good point. Maybe it works on StreamerKit because Nate works on that too.
Maybe it works. Oh, yes. That can be true, yeah. All right. Yeah, so Streamer.bot has been released. It's free. It's available on Windows, of course, and you can make it run on Linux. We even have an installer for the Linux version where you can just go to the wiki, go to the link, get that script, and it will do all for you. It will do a setup where it downloads the latest version from GitHub. It will create a desktop icon for you, so you can use that from your icons with auto startup and stuff. And there's even update functionality built in that script. So on Linux, we are pretty fine. On Windows, there you have to do a little bit more manually. Haha. Yeah, but it's an amazing bot, and I can totally recommend to have a look at it, even though if you're using other bots already. So what I'm still doing, I have still PhantomBot running, because I've been running PhantomBot since quite a while. I'm using that for showing my alerts or notifications or so, because it has a web browser source that I can use, and then I put all the videos into PhantomBot, and I have only one web source that I bind into OBS, and it's very portable with that. Also, I have my loyalty points in PhantomBot, so migrating that over to StreamerBot is of course possible. But okay, I have to admit I was a little bit lazy, using the best out of 2 worlds now, and I think you can do the same. Right. So yeah, StreamerBot is awesome. And as Cypher already suggests, we might have a streaming tools episode and talk about all those tools and go a little bit deeper into that. Maybe reiterating about some things that have already been said, and where there are already videos from VRFlat and Andy Lippy and Nutty and whoever. Nevertheless, that might be a good idea.
Well, and I mean, it'll be different if we talk about it, because we'll be having a conversation about these tools rather than just one person explaining their experiences, you know?
Mm-hmm. True. Although, speaking of some of the streaming tools, no worries. Apparently, a communications protocol has been gaining in popularity among just different projects that I've been seeing out in the Twitterverse. There's one that uses facial tracking, actually, that's just implementing, it's called OSC. I forget what it actually stands for, but it's a music and like lighting control protocol. And there have been 2 or 3 other projects that are like VR related that have been using this. So I'm kind of hoping that we see some maybe a
Open
plug or
sound
something pop up for
control.
Streamer Kit. Yeah, open sound control.
Interesting.
Yeah, we can
Yeah, it
get
looks
that
like the
into
standard's
the
been around for a while, but it's kept gaining traction.
tools episode. Yeah. Yeah, let's go get over to the VR gaming news, huh?
Yeah.
Let's start.
Who's heard? Facebook is now Meta. Okay, next topic.
I would actually vote for doing it like that, really, because Facebook VR is not available in Germany anymore. I can't say anything about it. I just heard that they switched it.
Totally.
So if you are using that, what are your experiences with it?
I mean, they've changed their menus and things on the Quest 2 headset several times. The use of it for me hasn't changed at all since I'm a developer. I mostly just plug it in and sideload things anyway. Sideloading's still easy. You can still do that. You can still play basically whatever you want to load on it. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to that. As far as them renaming to Meta,
I mean,
they
as someone
renamed to Meta.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who casually uses a Quest for wireless gameplay and stuff, core functionality without it tethered to a PC and AirLink, I mean, aside from them slowly streamlining things as expected, and as Onion said, they've been playing with the UI, I really haven't noticed anything from the user land side. The only thing, in my opinion, that's really happened since the name change is everybody's just confused about what the concept of the metaverse is now. And a lot of executives are trying to force their opinion in there on what the metaverse is. I think that's the only thing that's come from their name change.
Okay.
Delusion of their brand, confusion.
Yeah. Then let's come to some more pleasant news. There are new games also available, like really new games that have been in development for quite a while. We heard about that already last time. Zenith: The Last City. I've not played it, but I've heard that some people have played it. How are your experiences with that game? Who played it of you?
I took a quick dive in through like past the tutorial and kind of got a taste for how the combat and everything is. In my opinion, is that it feels like the most basic of basic initial push MMOs. Like it gives me old school EverQuest vibes, kind of like not necessarily the visuals, but the overall completeness of all the functionality and how basic all of the actual motions and gestures are that you have to interact with things. They simplified it, and it really makes sense that they did that since it's a first of its kind MMO in VR. I didn't get into it very deep. One of our fellow streamers, Ace Tari, did a 24-hour 0 to 40 stream for both of the available classes, and it looked like after a while the combat just kind of ended up digressing down to this kind of emotion. If you're watching the stream, yeah, Orbis I do believe was the first, but as one of the first, but you basically just kind of like rhythmically putting your arms up and down as the Blade Master at level 40 at one point when he's just grinding, and that looked like it was all of the gameplay at the top level. But a lot of people are having fun with it. You know, it's an MMO, but it's also an initial release MMO. So you get to end game content, and it's like, well, there's some content here, but it's not really grasping me with story or anything like that. As far as I saw. So I mean, it looks like it's a good play if you're into MMOs and you want to get into a more physical social experience where you're kind of off adventuring, stabbing, and shooting things.
I had a fairly similar experience. Keep in mind, I have actual decades of hardcore MMO experience, you know? And the comparison to early EQ stuff is apt in that it is very fundamental MMO gameplay mechanics, your standard fetch quests and things like that. It very much fits this paradigm that Meta has painted, that they expect people who put on those goggles to maybe spend 2 hours in it. They expect an hour of gameplay at a time. And because of that, they even the Zenith developers have come out and said, we get you hardcore MMOers are a little disappointed in the game. Sadly, this game's not for you. This game's for people who are going to bite off little chunks at a time, and that's it. And I get that. I do. The barrier to entry for extended VR sessions it's up there. It's harder for most. I get that we've got a crowd who are so invested in their VR lifestyle that, we've got people who literally sleep in VR.
There's definitely a wide variety of different VR users.
There is.
Very wide variety.
I myself, I've easily spent 6 to 8 hours inside the HMD, only stopping to drink water and swap out sweaty facial interface gaskets, But I'm usually really active and directly engaged when I'm spending that long in VR. Yeah. So, I get it. But it's like Onion said, it's definitely a good step for Gen 1 VR MMO. And my hopes are high for what'll be coming from other developers and even the developer of Zenith in the future.
Yeah, so I've seen that people mostly are streaming it in first-person mode, but there is an avatar mode. And I've seen that Chamfriend was wearing, like Cypher did it with the, what was the game you were playing with the dwarves and...
The hammers and drums?
No, it was also where you are mining stuff underground. What was that game?
Rock Galactic?
No, in VR.
We were mining underground in Township Tail.
Yeah, Township Tail, where you were also wearing some parts, having a green trouser or so. And
I had green leggings on so that my legs.
And Chamfriend is doing
those characters don't have any legs.
Yeah, and Chamfriend is doing kind of the same.
We did that a few times. That was so much
Zenith.
fun. We need to do that again.
He's doing kind of the same in Zenith because there's an avatar mode where then he is having a very bloated hoodie or so, which is covering the body. The head is covering the body, but only the legs are visible because he was wearing green leggings as well and chroma keying them out.
Fun.
And then he was walking around and had kind of a mixed reality view. And I was streaming that in Zenith. That was really funny to see.
I did something very similar in Population 1 for a while. And this all came from Onion sending me a link to the pants. And he's like, you know what? We should do this in Township. And then we stumbled across early on, Population 1 had this really interestingly broken live implementation. And it would overlay your video over a paper doll avatar that was missing its head. So for fun, you throw the green pants on so your legs are keying out, and it's basically just your torso floating there with the Pop 1 torso.
Oh, that's great.
I loved that. But there were some cheating issues using Live that I'm not going to describe how it worked, but it was shady.
Just Live. And you can use Live again.
Yeah, you can use Live again. They just don't let you use a camera now. And they're pretty strict about where the camera gets positioned.
Okay. Yeah, funny. That's how I saw it mostly. And that was really fun to see.
Yeah, I missed that. But we're going to see more interesting stuff like that going forward, especially in non-competitive VR titles where you don't have to worry about the concept of cheating.
Yeah. A friend of ours here is also in the chat already. I'll give him a shout out. That's BNO 2006. He received his Pimax sword controllers. Really? So those are a thing. And he was unboxing them on stream and showing them and talking a little bit about them. So they, from what I've seen, they kind of look like the index controllers, mostly. They have also an arc around them, and they have a strap for the back of your hand. And that totally looks like, it looks pretty similar. Apparently it's not completely the same, but it looks pretty similar. They have a big touchpad and 2 buttons and triggers, of course.
Yeah, they look very much like the Index controllers and the upcoming PSVR 2 controllers got smashed together.
Yeah, and apparently they're
I
now
honestly
available.
worry about breaking that tracking halo. I'm going to be frank.
Yeah, it looks like it might be easy to do.
They do look interesting, and it looks like they're available on their website right now.
Right.
300.
Yeah, they are available and they are shipping.
I saw a quick review from our friend Ellis Toast. He got a preview pair of them. And they looked like they had good tracking, as you would expect from any Lighthouse 2.0 situation. I mean, they looked usable. It just has a touchpad instead of like thumbsticks, and I'm not a big fan of that personally, but some people do.
I mean, the first Vive controllers only had a trackpad, so
honestly, it makes sense. Like a lot of, I made use, but I agree. I prefer the analog sticks. That said, how many photos have we seen on socials where people are like F and there's like a ripped out analog stick because it caught on their pocket or something,
I saw those as well, and I'm so happy that it didn't. It happened once to me that the cap of one of those analog sticks popped off. It did not tear out the complete thing below.
The ribbon cable still attached.
All
nice.
in,
Lucky.
It was just popping off the cap. And even the sensor was still attached. So I could just pop it on again and it was fine. Even the touch sensor still worked. And I was,
it's not just the ripping it out thing. Like there's the whole analog drift conspiracy, right? And as a longtime gamer and as somebody who has put many, many hundreds of hours onto different types of controllers that use all the major analog switches, I'm going to tell you right now, you guys are a little heavy-handed with your controllers. There's no reason to mash on those damn sticks while you're using them. I have not had a single Index controller start drifting on me. I have 4 pairs of them. I have 6 controllers that have been smashed to shit because I am just violently irresponsible with my VR stuff. But one thing that has never failed or started drifting on any of them? The analog sticks. So I feel like people who have these drift problems might be a little rough on their controllers. Just a smidge.
Yeah, I think Valve learned a lot in the recent time regarding hardware, and we will talk about that a little bit later.
As someone who's put a couple of thousand hours on several controllers playing Rocket League and just grinding the crap out of controllers, I agree. You probably need to lighten up on your controllers a little bit.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. When analog controllers first came out, I was just as guilty as everybody else. And at first, since the L3 and R3 buttons weren't really utilized by anything, a lot of the time you'd be mashing on those controllers and you'd be like, it clicks when I push on it, whatever. And it isn't until you're playing games that use L3 and R3 that you realize, maybe I should lay off of these a little bit.
I still think they're too light to press L3 and R3, honestly. It's too easy to hit them by accident when you're in the middle of a really heated, anything. You got to, switch directions really quick.
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn to just use a gentle touch and the tip of my thumb when I'm using them, It's hard. Yeah, it takes a concentrated effort because the impulse is to just mash on it. Harder means faster.
I feel that. It's like when you're driving in a racing game and you're doing this with your controller, hoping that your car moves faster, which it doesn't. But yeah, I totally get that. It happens to me all the time.
So the PlayStation 5.
Also in Rocket
League. Dude, even if you don't have a PS5, I highly recommend picking up a DualSense controller just for use as a PC gaming gamepad. This thing is by far... They're so good. And we're finally starting to get games that support DualSense. Okay, I mean,
I love the Steam controller.
That's different. Well, the Steam controller
literally inspired your, hey, let's talk about the Steam Deck real quick.
We have that as a topic later.
Okay. I'm like, that's a perfect segue to the Stream Deck. Here's the control that inspired the madness that's on this thing.
We are in the VR section, and that would totally come off VR. So yeah, we have other stuff to talk on as well.
Topic.
Yeah.
Where are we next? We have
games updates.
Okay, so yeah, Beat Saber 1.20.
120 is out, and they have a new OST. It took quite a while for the mods to update, and now the BSIPA has been updated, and some mods are working again. Crane took the effort and updated Song Request Manager. He even updated that with an internal WebSocket because there is some quirks going on with the chat core implementation, which is now like outdated, but there's not a new version out yet. So he took the effort and implemented a WebSocket server. We still need to test that a little bit. I wasn't able to test that yesterday when I was playing a little Beat Saber because my Beat Saber installation kind of broke after the update. Yeah. So mods were working. I was starting a song and it went black and stayed black. And I reverted all the mods, but it still was there in that case. I verified the installation. I need to check that more out. I don't know. So yeah, I have still some issues with that update.
I've had success.
Did you try rolling back the hyperbolic magnetism folder as well? Oh wait, you're in Linux. Where is? I don't even know where that data gets stored in Linux.
I have a backup
So in Windows, we have an application data folder that's separate from the Beat Saber folder that some of those environmental parameters can be stored in. And a lot of times when we get weirdness, when stuff doesn't want to render, it's usually because something in there is corrupted or there's there's like a version mismatch or something.
Oh, okay. You know? Yeah, I have to check that,
but
because
I have
that's
no idea where that exists in Linux.
In the wine or in the Proton prefix. That's like replicating parts of the Windows structure and that stays the same. That's not updated, or like when you back up Beat Saber, that's not backupped. It's its own folder. But that's an idea. So maybe I can check that, even though it helped to revert to the previous version, so 1.19.1, and that all worked again. Yeah. But yeah, maybe there is some state. So that's a good idea. I'll check that.
So did you get to play 1.20 at all yet?
I was playing it unmodded, and I was playing the first song of the OST 5. It sounded good, but as I wanted to have it modded.
Can we talk about that first song in OST 5? I have mixed opinions on it. Like I get what they were going for with it. They were totally trying to just barf all the new meta into it as much of it as they could. But that very first song that shows up on the list is one of the harder ones out of OST 5. And I get the feeling a lot of people get...
or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly, that one. I was surprised by how difficult it was. And I get a feeling a lot of people are going to start OST 5 and hit that and be like, I'm out.
Maybe I wasn't on the highest difficulty or so I haven't... I think
the highest difficulty one was still, there's a Kamiya map that they threw in there, and I think that one's technically...
Kamiya maps are tough,
Yeah, that Kamiya map is straight out of Ranked. It feels like so.
It really is. Like they threw that in there just for the squirrel jerking.
This is fan service. Yep, that was fan service. There you go.
Totally.
Honestly, my favorite, my absolute favorite, and this is my current favorite in all of the OSTs now, is Firestarter.
Yes.
It's not the Prodigy Firestarter. It's by somebody else, but apparently Etan mapped it, ETAN, and I can't stop raving about it. Like it uses all the new mechanics and everything, but it feels so good. Like all the slash meta, it's very dancey. It's very, very flowy. Like I don't know, it's super jives with my play style, and I love it.
Ooh. Yeah, I need to get that running.
Yeah.
There's
as far as the mods are concerned, I was able to get all the mods working. I had SRM working with some behind the scenes fixes from Crane, using a little bit different method. I'm not going to reveal what that is just yet, but did have some of that working, and all the rest of the mods seem to be working just fine. Score Saver's not working right now, so none of your scores save. But whatever, playing for fitness and fun too. So
Yeah, talking about...
Before we get away from OST 5, I also actually really liked the new Yaroslav Beck track, Magic.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. And honestly, I think anybody who questions whether they have the skill to play something like a $178, I'd start with Magic. Magic is actually a really comfy song in the OST. It's good stuff.
Yeah, Crane.
All right, yeah. Talking about fitness in VR, the next game is totally a fitness game for VR, Pistol Whip. And they had the Encore update.
Okay.
And the Encore update added 2 new maps, which are based on the end credits of the campaigns. So if you want to play, those songs are nice as well. And if you want to have a map where you can play that song, that's now available with that Encore update. They also added some new modifiers and stuff. So if you have missed that in the previous updates, the scoreboard got now splitted per modifier and per combination of modifiers. So if you want to compete with somebody who is having like a Deadeye but dual wielded pistols, or somebody who is using only one pistol, that's on separate scoreboards now. And yeah, the
awesome
wide range of weapons they have, as well as the modifiers they have, you can play this game, even though there are no custom songs really. You can have a lot of fun with those mods. And Minicorn was, for example, playing yesterday, and they have this modifier where the enemies have these bobbleheads, the big heads. That looks so funny.
Big head mode return.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And there are some like challenges, for example, where you have Deadeye, which means there's no aim assist, and Pistol Whip, it benefits from aim assist, I can tell you. Otherwise, because you get a penalty if you don't hit. And then you're shooting all the time and trying to aim, and then a lot of bullets are around you. It's really tough. It's a workout.
Or you could learn how to aim.
Mm-hmm. And having those big heads.
Get good.
Yeah, having those big head enemies helps there a little bit. So it mitigates a little bit the Deadeye modifier. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy Pistol Whip a lot, even though the amount of songs is a little bit limited, but I guess that will add over time. Get Pistol Whip because it's a really good game. It makes a lot of fun. I hope they will add the third-person camera or avatar mode in the future, because then on Linux we would be able to stream that and be in a kind of mixed reality view as well. It works with Live though, so I enjoy that.
Your legs will hurt. Your legs will hurt.
Yeah, you remember Matrix, the first
Pistol
movie?
Whip is absolutely leg day.
Yeah, the meme where Neo is asking, why do my eyes hurt? There's a meme that says, why do my legs hurt?
Because you've never used them before.
You've never used them before.
Because you've never used them before. So true.
It's really cool.
Oh my God.
Y'all VR people stand still too much. Dance a little bit when you smash some block.
Crouch. Stop complaining about crouch walls and just crouch.
Just crouch, guys. You need to move. All right, so the next 2 topics, let's move those to the end so that we don't split between hardware and software again. I feel like these next 2, we're going to spend a while talking about them anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's do Onion. You were talking about We Are One.
Yeah, We Are One. So I'll paste you the link there. Wait, where'd it go? Okay, Corbin's got it.
I got it. I pasted it into the chat.
I love seeing the battling cursors in the shared document. It's great.
Isn't that good? It's multiplayer notepad. No, We Are One. It started off as a prototype game called Help Yourself, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, or the podcast before, whatever we call this thing, the cast. But it's called We Are One now, and it's described as a temporal puzzle game. Each level, you're presented with a number of different positions that you can teleport yourself into, and that starts the timer. And as you exist in this position, it records what you're doing. So you can pick up a gun. You can throw the gun. You can pick up some ammunition. You can throw the ammunition. You can load it into a gun. You can catch the ammunition with the open gun to load it and shoot something. You can do blah, blah, blah. Okay. So some of the levels require you to do things in a strange order. So, for example, one of the example levels that they have for you is it shows a wall, and then there's this like board over a hole, and it's not really apparent at first. And so you have to go to the first position, shoot the board, and then shoot the other two guys. But the problem is the first gun only has 2 bullets, so you have to shoot the board, but then you have to shoot the other 2 guys, but you only have 2 bullets. So you shoot the board, then you have to teleport to the second position, do what you're supposed to do there, and then go back to the first position and redo it. So that, yeah, it's very complicated, but it's a lot of fun.
I was about to ask. I read something about this game before that you're dealing with a lot of actual, like, you're creating temporal paradoxes to make some of this stuff happen, essentially.
Yes.
Which,
how
cool.
That sounds really cool, yeah.
It's very strange. You have to think very non-linearly. It's very time loopy. It's very, like, some levels it'll put stuff in your way that you have to shoot at to make go away, right? But you have to kind of think ahead. Well, like, when do I need that to happen? Because maybe I need to stack up a bunch of ammunition against it first, so that when it goes away, it slides down this thing, so that my 16th self can grab the ammunition and finally shoot all these targets. Like, it's very, very timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, mind. It's fun. It's really great, and I highly recommend checking it out. Definitely go follow it. You can grab the demo on SideQuest. It's free. There's like, I think, 20 or 30 levels you can play through in the demo, and they're currently working on the full game. It'll be available at the link that Corbin posted at Oculus. I haven't been paid or anything to promote the game. I just want to talk about it because it's really cool. So I found that. I'm sharing it with all of you.
Nice.
Sounds exciting.
So
glad to see people exploring new dimensions in VR.
Oh, is it an Oculus exclusive, or is it available on PC or other platforms as well?
It might be an Oculus exclusive. I'm not 100% certain.
All right. After the Fall Horde update.
I hope they moved over, though.
What is after the Fall? The Horde update?
After the Fall, the Horde update is, I believe, the first in their series of free DLCs that they promised upon release and upon their beta. The Horde update brings some competitive zombie killing action. There's leaderboards for going in, bring your team and eliminating the hordes of the, I forget what they're called in the game. They're not called zombies. They're called do you remember, Could?
Like infected or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, something, the frozen, or I forget, whatever they call the zombies in After the Fall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically it's a big competitive update. They've added a bunch of guns and achievements and things that you can get, and they're always looking to add more and stabilize more on that game. I'm looking forward to playing that in the next few weeks, hopefully with maybe our friend Gordy Kicks. I know Gordy picked it up.
Oh, it's
a zombie shooting action.
Cooperative experience?
Yeah, it's very Left 4 Dead. It's kind of like Left 4 Dead in VR.
Snowbreed. Like they call them Snowbreed.
Snowbreed, yes.
Oh.
Snowbreed, the zombie creatures.
All right.
If you got anything up there, if you can share off their describey.
Further updates have happened to Ragnarok, which is again a rhythm music game where you are not smashing block, but hitting drums and driving
drums as a mighty warrior.
You are sitting in a boat and you are motivating the guys who are doing the work. Is that correct? Is that the Vikinger ship game? I haven't played
Viking
that yet.
little warship. Yep.
Our friend and streamer friend Zoannon is playing that on a regular basis. So at least that I've seen that.
Technically, you could accurately describe it as Beat Saber for half the gameplay for twice the effort.
It's Beat Saber if Beat Saber consisted of nothing but resets.
Yeah, you only have to hit down. Yeah,
Literally all downs, all down notes.
Yep.
But it is a great time. I honestly enjoy it. I enjoy
It's
it
fun.
differently than Beat Saber. But the new update, the raid update, is I guess one of their first purchasable DLCs. They've been putting out lots and lots of free DLC updates, and then they're finally like, okay, we put this one together enough. We'd like to charge you for it.
Which is fine, I guess.
Good for them.
Yeah,
I'm glad they put
fine.
the effort into
it's
the
a rhythm
update.
game. I would hope that they need something to maintain.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Can't persist a business on free.
Until You Fall also got an update. I have not played that one yet.
This one's interesting. Until You Fall is one of my all-time favorite VR games, and this one excites me. They added two-handed weapons. It's a great axe, a great sword, and a big old smashy hammer. They call them Great Axe. Let's see, Warhammer, and for some reason the Great Sword is called Great Sword. Actually has a name though. It's called Fate's End.
Okay.
I haven't gotten to play with them yet. The update just came out like 3 or 4 days ago. So I'm probably going to be streaming it myself next week. Apparently, there are also some quality of life improvements that I haven't seen much documentation on. I guess we'll see when I get to play it. But two-handed weapons, that's the big thing.
And
that game is really good about making weapons feel heavy.
I'm still holding out hope that they somehow figure out how to shoehorn in at least 2-player multiplayer into Until You Fall.
It has to be their most requested feature, co-op.
Has to be.
Like an arena mode would be interesting, but I would much prefer co-op. Co-op in that game would be freaking amazing.
We're just streaming, though. We're just streaming.
Yeah.
All right.
Now let's move to the hardware.
The meaty bits. Yes, the meaty hardware bits.
Yeah, shall we start with the Skinetic? And
I think let's start with Shockwave and let Onion talk about his experience with it, and then we'll segue into Skinetic.
Shortly, because
Skinetic kind of blindsided us.
Okay, because Shockwave, we will have the big talk next week. So yeah, just mentioning it, Cypher has some experience with it.
Actually, I've got it. I actually have it here. I can show it to you.
So Onion received a Shockwave prototype and got to demonstrate it last week.
This is not the final version of the Shockwave. This is a prototype, and it is fully functional. It's a haptic and tracking suit that covers your torso, arms, and legs. It doesn't have like face or head or feet, but all the tracking is there for those things because it also uses your VR headset as well as your controllers. So it's meant to be, used in VR. I felt the reins in VR. One of the haptic demos that they have puts you in control of the character in the demonstration. Where my arms were moving, the character's arms were moving. I was able to lean over and felt rain pitter-patter on my back, and I was backwards, and it pitter-pattered on my front, and like all the little haptic sensors and everything. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I've had experience with some tracking suits previously. I actually kickstarted the Prio VR a few years ago, and the tracking in that is, I would say, predecessor kind of rudimentary. As compared to the Shockwave. Shockwave is fantastic. It's not often twitchy at all or anything. Like the tracking is smooth. You can see the demonstration on my VOD if you want to take a look at that. But we'll also be doing a little bit deeper dive into the topic next week with the Shockwave developers on this podcast.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
So that leads us into something that blindsided all of us, and for me, it's totally my fault. This blindsided me because I skipped CES this year for obvious reasons. And these guys had a presence there. There are a couple YouTube videos out there of some of the CES demonstrations, but it looks like they didn't get enough coverage, and that's why I missed them. But they're called Skinetic, and they have announced they've got a Kickstarter going live next week. I haven't seen a price yet, but what's interesting is they did demonstrate it first. So they're claiming to be the first high fidelity haptic suit or haptic vest. It's a B-haptics looking vest that you can feel raindrops, wind, bullet impacts, etc. So it seems this is I think it's haptics only. It looks like it's a bridge device between Shockwave and the B-haptics vest, really. I haven't gotten to try Shockwave yet. I'm interested in how did you get to feel all the varying levels of intensity that the haptics are capable of creating? How impressive did it get?
I would say this is going to be a really great introductory unit of its type. Honestly, it being one of, as far as I knew until yesterday, it was the first of its type, and now we're finding out that this other thing exists, Skinetic. But the granularity on it, I think, is good and appropriate for the level of technology that we're looking at introducing into the consumer sector with this product.
Especially at the price
point.
Like,
at the price, the pricing on it, like they've nailed everything about this, and it's exactly what I would expect the consumer product to be from what they described in their Kickstarter. Like it's exactly what they wanted to deliver.
Cool. So in the end, we have some choice there. I mean, there are 3 suits then available. Do you see that correctly?
At least. The core suit's extensible. They'll let you add additional trackers. So I think there's additional foot trackers that can go a little further than what Onions has. And there was something about this is the Shockwave. And there's something about, I think there were additional shoulder trackers you could spring for too, wasn't there?
Yeah, I saw that on there too. I don't know that the products they currently have listed on their page correlate with what's going on with the Shockwave. I haven't looked in the last couple of days if they've updated it or not since they started shipping their Kickstarter suits, or I guess they will be shipping their Kickstarter suits soon.
Which, by the way, there's a number of us with FeVR who, myself included, who should be receiving them soon. So we're going to have a lot more for you guys coming with this
I'm trying to put
podcast
together
next
some
week.
software. I'm working on software so that we can all interact with each other over the stream too. So you'll be able to literally reach out and touch your favorite streamer with your mouse. Click, click.
Yay! I want to go hug my friends in VR, Onion. Let's go.
Okay. We can hop over to other hardware topics. That's a perfect segue. So with the latest CPUs, so this is going into the streaming part interesting for streamers. We have several ways to get the video encoded, so before it's sent to Twitch. And we all know that the quality is, especially at 1080p and 60 frames, it can be tricky for games that have a lot of movement. There is, though, I mean, for the hardware side, with hardware encoders, we have on the NVIDIA cards, on the NVIDIA, I think that's since when? Since the Pascal cards, they have a dedicated chip on them, which is the NVENC, the NVIDIA encoder, which can do hardware x64 encoding, which is the codec that encodes the video. And there is the X or H264 codec, which can be also encoded on your CPU. And if you do that on the CPU, there are several settings for the quality. And those are ranged from faster to slower. And the one in the middle, that's on par with the NVENC encoder, mostly. But it completely takes off the load of your CPU and puts it onto a dedicated chip that's on the NVIDIA GPU. So you can play with that graphics card. You have the NVENC chip, and you have your CPU.
Let's make sure to point out that NVENC chip does nothing else for you. So if you're not using it for encoding, it literally just sits there doing nothing. And the version of GeForce graphics cards you have dictates how many parallel sessions that chip can encode at the same time.
Yeah, and
which can be a big boon.
It's
depending on how you're doing your streaming.
It is taking the load of your CPU for the encoding. And it's not, at least mostly, in like 99.9% of all the cases, not affecting the performance of gameplay. It can affect gameplay a little bit if your memory bus is completely loaded with textures or whatever, but that barely happens. So there's enough bandwidth.
Or if you're overclocking the graphics card and you're expecting a certain level of performance out of it, that NVENC encoder does draw some of the max power capacity for that card. So if you're overclocked and you start encoding, that could start causing performance issues for you.
Yeah, but it's like
generally,
edge case. It's an edge case.
Exactly.
Right.
That's an extreme overclocker scenario there.
And you can see that, for example, in wall maps in Beat Saber, that if you are using NVENC or the X or H264 encoder on the, I don't know, what's the name of the medium setting? It's slow, and then it's faster already? I don't know.
Right, yeah.
I think the fast is comparable to NVENC, and you can see artifacts. And for example, when I'm playing No Man's Sky and going into super cruise mode where you are flying within the solar system, it has a lot of dots, a lot of stars coming towards you. And this completely kills the encoder. A lot of artifacts are showing. So what's now up with the new CPUs? They can do the slow and even slower preset of the CPU encoding. And they can encode those fast-paced scenery in 1080p 60 at 6 Mbit without a noticeable visual loss. And that's amazing. The quality we can now squeeze into that little bit of bandwidth. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's fascinating, especially since now, because we have these efficiency cores available on these 12th gen processors. Offloading tasks like this to those efficiency cores is brilliant, and I'm really excited for the future of 12th gen. Yeah, this is really cool stuff. Do we know anybody with a higher end 12th gen processor that's actually experimented with it yet?
I think Lifesaver has one, right?
Did he get a 12th gen?
And I think he was even trying to do a 7 Days to Die stream with that encoding. And when he was turning around, you were seeing no artifacts.
That's great.
And
so brilliant.
It's incredible. So that codec was never meant for live streaming. It was never meant for live encoding real-time video. But now the power is in the CPUs to do it. And with that, we will see a next level of quality of streams online without any visual artifacts and stuff. And it will be amazing.
Exciting.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that those CPUs are now on the market and available. And if you are a streamer, you might be interested in those. And maybe, I mean, a good idea would be, for example, to have a little bare bones system with an ITX mini board or so with
just
the cooling
to do your
system.
encoding.
Just have OBS with it and do the encoding. Use maybe NDI or a capture card.
It's such an expensive CPU to just build a stream box out of. That's like a $600 US processor, isn't it?
But well, for the enthusiastic streamers among us,
$550 at Micro Center. It's MSRP $650. Whew. Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm definitely I've been eyeballing these things for a while now, but now that I know about the encoding potential,
it's incredible.
I mean, I complain about macro blocking that occurs when if you watch my stream when I'm just doing my just chatting segment, I have this CG rendering that's a spinning 3D wireframe that, depending on the speed I am running that animation at, it causes some really, really nasty macro blocking in the background, and it drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah. You can totally get rid of that with the slower preset then.
Totally get rid of it.
I mean, there is also from AMD a processor that's capable of doing that. And apparently yesterday, Silzoid has been streaming a wall map in Beatbox and using that CPU with the slower preset and had no artifacts. So it's the i9 12900K that's capable of do that on the Intel side, and the AMD 5900 750X on the AMD side. And both of them can handle slower presets of the encoder and give you like a crystal clear image in 1080p 60 frames per second at 6K, 6 Mbit.
So what kind of latency? What kind of latency overhead are we looking at using that solution for rendering?
Few milliseconds.
Like how much is that? I'm curious what that's going to do to stream versus real time chat.
It's live streaming. It's the time it uses for encoding. It's like minimal. If it's a second, I would say it's even too long. Probably it's less. It's the normal, like we have it now with NVIDIA.
Have you? Oh my God. There's actual, you can find benchmarks on encoding times on that 12900K, including with the E-cores disabled. And the encoding times are so much better on the E-cores. It's insane, especially once you remove the power limits on the CPU. Oh my God. This is nuts.
So this will open up a complete new area for streamers.
Yeah.
So that's on the CPU side. But we have also heard something good about the GPU side. Looks like graphics cards are becoming available again, huh?
It's insane. This is so crazy. So for the last few months, I've been monitoring my local Micro Center weekly. I get down there in person. And usually, depending on the day you show up, they would get their NVIDIA shipment first thing in the morning, and by like noon, all of the graphics cards would be gone. However, since about October and November of last year, my Micro Center has had every AMD card in stock daily and available. So I've been telling people, if all you care about is rasterized graphics and things like RTX don't matter to you, go buy your damn AMD card and be happy you have a modern 3D card. However, in the last week, inventory levels have shot up everywhere. I had first noticed at my local Micro Center, they had actual dozens of 3060s, 3070s, 3080 Ti's, and 3090s. There was like 24 different 3090s on the shelf. I mean, like 4 different varieties, but 24 of them total. And they haven't been selling out, guys. They've had graphics cards on the shelf every day for the last week, and EVGA was even selling 3000 series graphics cards at MSRP on their website this week. So this tells me 2 things. 1, people are slowing down how many graphics cards they're buying. 2, manufacturing is catching up. 3, this is the big one. They're starting to clear inventory for the 4000 series announcement, guys. It's coming. We're just a couple months away from them actually telling us specs on these 4000 series cards, and it's going to be this holiday that they come out. How scary is that?
I just bought my graphics card 2 years ago.
I know.
Well, that's the
I'm not buying a 4000 series. I've got a 3090 in my main machine. I can't buy a 4000 series.
Oh, gosh.
I'd better start mapping now.
Yeah, right. That could happen. I mean, depending on availability and pricing, I could commission Onion for something so he could have a 3090.
3090? I'm talking 4000 series.
I mean, you can go work for other people for that. I honestly wouldn't want to repackage my 3090 to ship it off to somebody anyway. That stock air cooler that came on it is absolute garbage. That thing needs to go into a water-cooled rig.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, so that's on the good side.
That on anybody.
That's on the good side of hardware. But that was the next topic we have on the list. That happened shortly after our last cast. And for streamers, it was interesting. To be honest, it didn't affect much later on, but the Twitch source code had been leaked. At least a big chunk of it. It was named the first part. And if Twitch wouldn't fix some of their issues with the hate rates and other stuff they had, they were threatened to also release the second part of the source code, which
whatever ended up
happened.
coming of that. Yeah.
It didn't happen. Also, I have to admit, the only thing that we learned from that is that the big streamers are really earning a lot of money. Oh, what a surprise.
Fun. But the pay gap between the top end and your, say, middle-class streamer is ridiculous, guys. It really is.
Yeah, but
Screamers. I'm a screamer. Aren't you a screamer?
But that was also expected, to be honest. I mean, you can see that on the average view numbers of those streamers, the really big streamers earn the most money, and then it falls off. And you can totally see most of the people who are regular streamers with, I mean, the bigger ones have like, what, 500 viewers or so? Yeah, of course, there's a big difference between the earnings of those, because there are way more streamers with less average viewers, and only the top ones earn the most money. So I have to admit, okay, you can see now really in numbers how much they got paid out since then. But other than that, yeah. Okay.
And how much the actual viewership tapers off as you step down between streamer tiers, you know? Like, going from tens of thousands of viewers straight down to thousands of viewers, down to, you know, dozens of viewers.
But to be honest, after that, nothing much happened, really. So even though the source code had been leaked, or parts of it, looks like nobody has been attacking Twitch much or using their technology to build up their own stuff, at least not new startups. I mean, you can't, of course, officially say, hey, we see the source code, how Twitch does it, we are doing our own stuff, that would work. But nevertheless, I have not seen much impact of that. So yeah, it was interesting that it happened, that people were able to get the source code of Twitch. And looks like they are well organized using Git. So they were pulling off the repositories with commit history. So you could see how things developed, at least in parts of it. I've not heard any conclusions of that. I mean, developers have been looking at that, but like real conclusions, like, okay, Twitch is doing this like that. So it would be, for example, be interesting, at least I find it interesting. How many streamers can you watch at the same time and count as a viewer? The only thing that Twitch was recently stating, or like restating, is that it doesn't matter how you watch the stream, you will count as a viewer. So if your tab is in the background, it doesn't matter. If your tab is muted, it doesn't matter. As long as the stream is somehow open and playing, you are counting as a viewer.
Playing. That's the trick.
Yeah, it has to be playing.
A lot of times those streams will stop playing if that tab's in the background. If
it stopped somehow, I mean, if you pause the stream, then you're not watching, then you don't count as a viewer. That should be obvious. But if the player has an issue, and sometimes we have this error 2000 or so, then you have to reload. Yep. If that happens, of course, you're falling off there as well. But what they did not state is, and that statement they had is already like 3 or 4 years ago, where they said, yeah, we see you lurkers, even if you are lurking a dozen of streams. And I think that's not true anymore. But nobody was figuring that out.
Your attention, though, like, yeah, how do you
not your friend who has 50 tabs open,
right? Like, how do you quantify attention? Like, how can you actually track someone's real attention? And we're getting closer, because Tobii eye tracking is starting to break into the market and be like, yeah, all you gamers need eye tracking, wink wink, because we don't want to get data from that and figure out where you're looking on your screen and advertise to you there. But you know.
Yeah, it's tricky, but
Gary, let's not talk about that.
It always goes.
I mean,
let's not talk about the Google effect.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, for streamers, not much impact happened, and Twitch was really amping up their efforts. So I haven't heard much about hate rates anymore. So there are now ways how to. They are acting very quick. If they realize those are accounts, they are like banning them right away from Twitch. The accounts are faster gone than you can even remove them with the tool from Commander Root sometimes. It's incredible.
Let's not ignore the fact that a lot of the hate raid mitigation came down to people actually taking steps to be able to control it for themselves through their stream. you know? There's a number of ways you could lock down your stream when stuff like that happened, and I know it's a pain in the ass, but in the end, that's what really helped win those wars. It was a combination of Twitch getting on top of banning these bot accounts, and new ones being made all the time, new ones being blocked all the time. But yeah, like finally managed to start getting ahead of it. But they find other ways to abuse it. YouTube disabling the visibility of the thumbs down. I think that's kind of a problem. I understand why they did it, because people going in and just spamming thumbs down on stuff they don't like or they want to be hateful about. But man, that's usually a pretty good indicator of whether or not somebody knows what the hell they're talking about when you pull a video up, Like, imagine, who was it that had that really, really bad PC build video? Was that The Verge or something a couple of years ago?
Yeah, The Verge.
Yeah, imagine not being able to thumbs down a video like that. Come on.
Yeah, no idea.
Why are we getting any likes on this?
1 million views, 2 likes.
Yeah.
The creator and their mother.
I mean, what Twitch still didn't change, and I think it's kind of fine, is the cut they take from what you spent as a viewer on a streamer. So they're still taking 50%, at least on the subscriptions. For the bits, it's a little bit different, but you have to pay them in advance. So there is something on top of that as well. So that's the same, because I think the hackers also demanded for the streamers a bigger cut. That did not happen. But what changed is how Twitch was handling is handling the playing copyright protected music on stream. That was changed a lot, and looks like they came to an agreement. I mean, it's still not allowed.
Switch things.
A lot of it is vagaries too. Like, they haven't told us how all of it works. A perfect example is any of us rhythm game streamers. It seems like our live streams, as long as we're broadcasting from a rhythm game segment, they're not giving us strikes. No matter what the song is, it doesn't matter. It'll get muted in the VOD, and that's the end of it. No strikes, Whereas if you're running just chatting with Spotify running in the background, you're going to get murdered. You're done, So it also seems that they've got a limited number of bots that are actually doing the scraping, which seems to be another contributing factor to whether or not people are actually getting strikes. So there's so many vagaries here that it's chilling, to say the least.
So have you ever heard of a rhythm game streamer getting a strike?
Nope. That's what I'm talking about. Unless, like, the only ones I've seen complain about it are the ones that were using Spotify during other segments of their streams.
Because, I mean, I think somebody said something, but I don't know anybody personally. And I have the impression as well that rhythm game streamers, they get the music muted and stuff. But I haven't heard really in person of somebody who got striked because of playing that.
Yep. Yeah,
I don't know.
The closest thing I've seen tertiary to it was Rage Sack's Twitter account got banned. And that's not Twitch, that's Twitter. But he was posting his Beat Saber content
that's
on
something
Twitter, and he got enough strikes because of it that they're like, bye Rage Sack, and he had to create a whole new account.
Yeah, but that's something different. I mean, there you are posting a video that's only available on Twitter, on their platform. It's not like linking to a bot, because that would have gotten more waves and strike more people, and your phone overheated again. But otherwise, I've not heard of any strikes on Twitch for playing rhythm games. So that's kind of a good thing. I mean, also we are altering the music itself by talking over it, by having the smash block sound, even though some streamers have turned that off and are not talking. So maybe that's something different. But still, it's not like using the music in the first place. It's maybe 50% of the content, maybe less.
Focus.
But the focus is on playing a map and getting a high score sometimes. And having a workout, and it's not like for broadcasting that music as an entertainment itself. So maybe that's why.
It's not the core of it. You're right. Well, and it's interesting too, because what you said about us talking over it and the varying volume levels and things like that, that plays a key role in whether the bots are even going to detect it. I've had a number of times where I have sung through a song through the entire thing, and the VOD didn't get muted. It's Crindash karaokeing over this song while he's playing Beat Saber. And then other times I don't do it. And that very same song absolutely gets caught by the algorithms and gets muted. So
yeah, the algorithms have come a long way. So they can sometimes detect already very short parts. And that's enough. And then they are over muting the parts back in front of that and after that. And it depends on the additional sounds you're putting in there. So I know, for example, all the songs of Rammstein are getting muted for sure. Even on YouTube, you get the VOD gets even taken down or like blocked. It's not taken down, but blocked. And if you're talking over that, then sometimes you can mitigate that detection.
Yep. Well, and that's an interesting that you bring up Rammstein. A lot of it has to do with the acts too. Because it seems there's a certain era of musician that the RIAA really managed to convince all of these higher profile musicians, you have to register with us and let us protect your music for you.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, there have been fewer and fewer artists that are willingly submitting their works to these engines, and they're just not getting caught up by them, you know? So a lot of that stuff, that's like individual lawyers, people working for these law firms, hunting down content online and initiating strikes against them. It's really interesting.
Yeah, but to be honest, after that Twitch leak, not much of that happened. Even the opposite happened. Yeah, I think Twitch was working on this stuff already and negotiating with the music industry and stuff. And now we have some better environment, I'd say. So things have improved. And maybe that's why never the second part got out. So that's not too bad, I guess.
I honestly think the worst thing that came of the entire leak was we learned how much Critical Role made in 2 years.
True.
Like $10 billion, guys. Come on. I know it's split between multiple people, but oh my God.
It's incredible.
Wow.
That's German luxury car money right there, you know?
Yeah, like Gabe Newell hand delivering your Steam Deck to you.
My God. Speaking of, time to transition to the next topic. What you got to show us, Corbin?
Let me clean it up. It has some fingerprints on it. But I do have one.
Schmutz on his fancy antique glare
I have
screen.
one. I have one. It's the coated one. It's the
so
antique glare one.
Yeah.
I have one of these. Yeah, the black is like really. I don't know if that's.
It's so wide.
It's
big.
monstrous. Have you seen the direct comparisons between it and like a Switch? It's a freaking.
Even though if you are having special controllers on the Switch where you have like grips like these, then it's different. Then the size is not that much in the difference. But in fact, the Switch is smaller and a little bit lighter. So
it's so much thinner.
the Steam Deck is now released. It's out in the wild. And that's why I'm so interested in this device. If
you don't have a pre-order, you can't have one, so don't get excited. But
it will take until the end of the year. So this is how it looks. So this is how the screen looks.
With Shenzhen shutting down, man.
Pretty.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is like a technical masterpiece. Not only from the ergonomics, it's pretty good. So for me, when I was grabbing this the first time, I was getting it out of the box.
I love this so much.
Yes, I do. I was like putting my hands on this, and my middle finger and ring finger snapped on the back pedals. It's like made for my hands. This feels so friggin' good. Valve has put a lot of effort into this. They have so many prototypes. I mean, they did the same with the Steam controller. They had so many prototypes until they came up with something that's suitable for a wide variety of hands. And
I'm so happy about that. Honestly, I've been waiting for someone to put those exact buttons on the back of a grip controller like that. And it has to be the Steam Deck. It can't be, anything else. It has to be the Steam Deck that finally does it, right?
Yeah, even though the Xbox Elite controller has back pedals and the Steam controller has back pedals, only one though, not two.
But they're just remapped from the shoulder buttons.
That depends. So with Steam input, you can assign anything you want to those.
Okay, we're not counting the Steam controller. That's very niche. It's
also
thing. But
it also doesn't exist anymore.
This is Steam Controller V2. This is Steam Controller V2, more or less.
Right, but the fact that you have the shoulder buttons, you have the thumbstick buttons, and you have the tactical buttons for these 4 fingers. That's the important thing that I was trying to get at. Like, I think we need those. Whether or not all games use them, like they even hinted at it back in the Sega days with the 6-button controller. They're like, yeah, we need more buttons, but we don't know where to put them.
Okay,
that's awesome. That's awesome to me.
Important questions, man. Now that you've had it for a while, what kind of games have you been playing on it?
I'm trying still games. And that's the most for me at the moment. This is how I'm playing with the device. I'm testing the games, how they run. I have played those games that I tried to play Everspace 2 on this, and Rockfish Games has even put up a Steam Deck repository, because what Valve offers is you can have a special repository with optimized assets. With optimized assets for the game, and Rockfish took the effort and put in specialized assets for Everspace 2, reduced size and stuff, a special
lower res textures and stuff for the 720
because on the 800p screen, this is 720p plus an additional 80 lines, which are mostly used, depending on the game though, for this line down here, where you have some Steam button shown here. But otherwise, it's like a 720p or 800p. It depends. The games can, if the engine can do that, because what is done here, Valve is using their own distribution of Arch. Arch is a Linux distribution, so putting software together with the kernel, with the graphics drivers, with all the things they need to make this thing run. And they are delivering something that's called GameScope. And that's the compositor that Valve is capable of configuring how they want it. And the screen that GameScope is showing the game is all the game sees. So they say, this is your screen, 800p, that's all you can see. You cannot go higher or whatever. And then the games mostly detect that properly. And then you can set in-game 800p screen. And it's small enough that you don't need high-res textures. You are holding it like, I don't know how far this is, but less than a meter for sure, like half a meter in front of your face. And if you compare that to your big screen, there's not that much of a difference. But on the small screen, you don't have to have high-res textures. And that's why you can have a game that is supported on deck, and it has lower textures and a lower download size and optimized graphical settings also.
Nice.
So I tried.
Those lower textures mean a lot less load on the device.
Yeah.
Transferring them to the GPU, so that's got to dramatically affect battery life, say comparing Cyberpunk to Everspace.
Right. So the thing
is, have you run Cyberpunk on it yet?
I have run it, and it's impressive how well it runs. It's really crazy.
Really?
I have enabled, so there are 2 ways for upscaling. There is the DLSS one we've talked about earlier, where you need an NVIDIA card for that, though, an RTX NVIDIA card. But there's also a GPU agnostic version that's called FSR, Fidelity FX Super Resolution. That's AMD's solution at the moment. NVIDIA, I think, is coming up with its own version that's graphics cards agnostic, so you can have it on all of them. But Cyberpunk can do both. They can have FSR or DLSS. And on the deck, they're using FSR. I've put it to the first setting, the high quality mode, I think. So it's rendering 1 resolution less. And it's smooth. It doesn't hit 60 FPS, but mostly more than 30, like 45 on average. And that's a good experience on the deck. You don't see if a game is really running at 30 FPS only, or even less. You don't really see that on the little screen, because this is also attached to the internal graphics cards. It's like using FreeSync or whatever, so you don't see a stutter really. And that makes this thing so amazing.
What's the max frame rate on the display?
They have capped it to 60 though, because they say more doesn't make sense, and it's capped. So there is, let me show you, there is a little...
I'm sure it's mostly to preserve battery life.
Yeah. So here's the activities button that I can press. The 3 dots, and then comes up a performance tab, among others. There's the notifications up here, your Steam friends, and the battery shows the performance tab. Know how well that's visible. And there I can press the advanced view. It does have this touch screen as well. You have the analog sticks, you have touchpads like on the Steam controller. And there you can see what I can set. I can set 60 FPS, 30 FPS, or even 15 FPS. Because there are games like, I don't know, card games or so, where you don't need 60 FPS. And this increases battery life a lot.
That's amazing. So,
it's incredible.
Okay, honestly, what have you run the battery down playing it unplugged? What kind of battery life have you been experiencing?
It depends on the game, of course, and it depends on the settings. But if I don't really care about saving battery life and going at like max settings that's playable and stuff, then the lowest I've had was a little bit less than 2 hours. So I was trying for example, Elite Dangerous Odyssey, because I was showing Elite Dangerous Horizons, because what Steam is also doing, they have these little marks below the game. This one, for example. And you can see at the moment, for Everspace 2, it's a question mark. For Elite, though, it is that visible? Somebody's playing this, so I have to open this. Game info. The game info says this game is unsupported. That means Valve has tested this already. There are 4 states that the game can have. That is deck verified. It's a green check mark. It's a yellow exclamation mark. That means it's playable on deck, but you have to tweak it a little bit, or it has some issues. Then there's the unsupported one with the cross sign, and it's the question mark untested. But if it has the cross sign, it means Valve has been trying to get the game to run and decided, no, this won't run on the deck. There are many titles, even though they have been tested unsupported, that are working fine. And Elite Dangerous is one of them. There's only one setting you have to do, though, and that is set in-game the full screen setting to borderless full screen. Because if it's set to full screen, maybe it's a bug in game scope or whatever that is, because it's flickering a lot, and that makes it unplayable. I get that. But if you set it to borderless full screen, it's gone. I was playing this for 1.5 hours without issues. So, also, what's about the device?
Handheld Elite Dangerous, guys.
And even Odyssey works. The really mean thing about Odyssey is Odyssey, Frontier Developments, the developers of Elite Dangerous, have ceased development on consoles. And this is a console. And it's not even officially supported by the developers, but it runs. It runs on this at a playable frame rate. It's about 30. It's like varying between 25 and 45, but it's playable. And that's amazing.
Take that, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft.
It is really amazing. So what I've not been playing shooters much. The only shooter that I've played on this a little bit was GTFO. Because at the moment, I'm testing, of course, all my favorite games at first, and then I'm having a look at all the other games. And GTFO has a kind of good mapping of the controls. So it's indeed playable with the analog sticks. They have a good mapping for the controllers. So as said, you have the analog sticks, of course. You have the D-pad on this side, the buttons on that side. You can click the analog sticks.
Clicky.
Clicky, clicky. You can click the touchpads.
We got
That's not audible. You can click the touchpad.
Podcast is doing its job.
It does have like an option button here, even though that's like a tab button. It has on this side, there's an options button that's mostly mapped to like escape or so. And they are used in the game. And once you learn the controls, because that's, of course, something and I think most people are coming from a PC using this device because Steam is on a PC. It's not on consoles. So it's not that console players are grabbing this device for playing their PC games. It will be mostly PC gamers. And because I totally cannot play shooters with gamepad controls. I'm getting into this now. And it is a thing. Whoa. It's not that bad. I was surprised how well I was able to play GTFO, which is a shooter.
I think we should talk about the console gamer facet of this, though. I think that's interesting because I know for a fact that there are a number of people who console game because PC gaming is too expensive. A device like this is lowering the barrier of entry to a spectacular level. $400 for the base model. Are you shitting me?
Not to mention access to the entire Steam games library.
Right? And what's fantastic about it is I think once they become generally available, we're going to see a lot of people who normally wouldn't own any kind of PC buying a Steam Deck, buying a dock, and it's their first PC is the Steam Deck.
Yes.
Which is amazing. Absolutely. I think this is so cool.
Valve is bridging a gap here that has been enormous. The Nintendo Switch wasn't able to bridge that gap. Every other handheld
interest in bridging the gap.
Yeah, no, that's literally their design philosophy is take old tech and work it as hard as possible. That's always been Nintendo's design philosophy. But I mean, price-wise, though, for sure.
And that's the thing.
That's a huge gap.
Because there are other devices like this available, the AO Neo, it's called, I think, or the X1 player, but they are double or triple the price for less optimized
GP,
software.
Whatever systems.
Yeah, it's
Windows.
I mean, there are handheld devices coming out of China right now that absolutely outperform the Steam Deck, and you are going to pay $1,300 US or more for these devices, but they exist. So if you want to spend premium money, that's cool, but you're not our target audience when we're talking about this device.
It's incredible what power you get for that price point.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
What I've seen now performance-wise, even Elite Dangerous Odyssey, which is really performance-wise, even on PC, it's struggling. And it's playable on deck because when it's dipping down the 30 FPS, it's not like disturbing. It still feels playable. It's not like, this is stuttery, it feels ugly or so. That's not happening. Probably because of the size of the little screen and having like the FreeSync or so. But having those AAA titles in your hands is amazing. And if the games then come up with a good control scheme, so where I was struggling at the moment now was playing Darkstar 1. Darkstar 1 is an old game from 2006. It's like Freelancer, or Everspace was a little bit inspired by this. It has like no gamepad control at all. There was, though, a remake once called Darkstar 1. I don't know how the edition was called. That was a HD remake for consoles. Excuse me. And that had probably adjusted gamepad controls, but here I had to map it myself. And it's doable. You're learning how to use Steam input and do mappings from any other input. So you can map gamepad controls to the Steam controller inputs. You can map keyboard and mouse stuff to it. You can map anything to everything. And with that, if you come up with a good setting, then it feels good. It feels good to play. And if you use the analog stick for steering the mouse or the touchpad, it's not that much of a difference. The touchpad feels even good. And if you are used to a Steam controller, which was their first attempt to bridge the gap between PC gamers and console gamers with those touchpads were replacing the mouse, where you could steer a mouse.
Yes.
Excuse me?
The screen is touch as well on the Steam
Yes,
Deck.
it's a touch screen as well. And there are card games, where you can swipe your cards on the screen. Nice. So it's an awesome device. And if you can get your hands on it, you will be amazed by it. The only thing that's really... it's not a downer or so.
We're emulating Nintendo Switch on that sucker.
You can do that. The thermal design of this thing is awesome. Nevertheless, the fan is audible. If you are playing a game, and that's a quiet game, you will hear the fan. The fan will go up pretty quick, but it's not a high-pitched, annoying tone. It's like a bass tone. It's a ground noise, but it's not too bad. As soon as you have headphones, earbuds, whatever on, you don't hear that at all anymore. Or if you amp up the volume a little bit, there are volume buttons. There's a headphone jack. That doesn't matter. Here you have the USB-C charger port. I've had now a docking station.
Does it have a SIM card slot?
Not a SIM card, no. They say use your phone in hotspot mode if you want to connect mobile to the internet, because that would have amped up the price. They said it was painful to meet the price point, and I don't think they make much money of this, if at all, but they don't have to. They have Steam. The more games they sell, that's how they make the money, and Valve has a lot of money in their bag that they can afford to build this thing with like zero net win.
Yeah.
And it does have, though, a micro SD card slot where you can get the smallest storage version for just $400 and put a 1 terabyte SD card in this. And apparently,
let's talk about that, guys. SD cards are getting fast enough now that is totally a viable option for a lot of these games.
They have made some tests, and especially on games that have long loading times, it does load a little bit longer.
Which class are we on now for that? Because I know we were at class 10 was for live streaming 1080p 60 video from like a camera onto its memory thing. I know that was required because I had a camera that did that. And what are we on now? Like, how fast is that technology looking?
So here's the thing. They've just been reusing the standards. We're still UHC class 10.
Still class 10. Okay.
Yeah. It's just you have to find the fastest card. Well, that's the thing. The top end has been growing as this has been evolving. Like, higher end cameras and stuff can pull insane data rates off of high-end SD cards, but you're talking a couple $100 for if you're recording 4K video, especially raw, you're looking at several gigs a minute for that video. You're going to fill up an SD card really fast, and a lot of these new devices are recording 6K, 8K. My smartphone here will record 8K at some ridiculous frame rate, and it just eats memory, man. And
so it's plenty of throughput to run games off of a Steam Deck then.
Absolutely.
I mean, the only difference between those, the internal difference, except the screen, are just the speed and the size of the internal storage. So the smallest one has an eMMC with 64 gigabytes for the $400. The next one for 530 has 256 gigabytes of SSD already. And the biggest one with 512 has a 512 gigabytes NVMe SSD. So there's a speed difference, but it looks like if you are putting all your stuff on an SD card, micro SD card, the loading times are not that much longer. It's not like annoyingly longer. It's measurably longer, but not. It doesn't. You don't feel it being that much longer. And at the moment, an USB-C deck is in the works. It should arrive late spring 2022. But for now, you can get docks. I would not recommend getting this one, though. The D-Lock one, because this one, if you attach it dynamically, you can not attach the charger to it. Then the HDMI or DisplayPort thing goes off again. That's somehow buggy. I don't know, some software initialization thing is going on there. But if you do a cold boot while this thing is attached with monitor, with charging, it works. But that's not something you want to do. You want to be able to plug it in dynamically. And that's why I got a new one. I got the DocTech, it's called. No, DocTech, it's called. It comes, DocTech, is that readable? Yeah, DocTech, it's called. It comes with this little neat pouch. So I got this one now.
Is that one of the ones with an Ethernet port built into it too?
The other one has an Ethernet port as well, though. Here's the Ethernet port. It has only HDMI, but for me and my capture card, that's enough for now. But this one I can unplug with power, with HDMI in any order I want, and it works pretty well. So I recommend get this one. This is also half of the price of this one. And it comes with a neat little pouch where you put in the device itself. And then you can put in the cable into this front pouch. How neat is that?
So cute.
Yes.
Okay, Onion, your earlier question about standards on the SD cards. So they've been iterating the ultra high speed standard. Looks like they're on UHC 3 right now, which does like 300 megabit a second.
Oh.
There's one last thing I want to say about the Steam Deck. You can install Windows.
We're about at time, aren't we?
Yeah. So one last thing, and then we're going to go.
So let's talk about Steam Deck thefts. This is the sad side of this story.
Wait. One thing I want to add still is you can install Windows on it already. There are drivers. Not everything is working yet. So I think audio is not working. If you want to use the speakers or the jack phone, that doesn't work yet, but you can use Bluetooth. Somebody was installing Windows on this and running VR on this. Well, that's, of course, an interesting thing. It doesn't work on Linux because the compositor is not made for that. And probably it will be tricky to get it to run at all. But somebody was running VR on this device. And guess what? Performance is not enough to have a good experience. It was like 20 FPS or so. That's not
Gabe
playable.
was pretty straightforward with us about that. He's like, it will work, but we don't recommend it, was literally what he said.
It's not designed for that. It's designed for
It's like, well, you
on-screen.
but
I mean, which resolution do you need?
Here's the thing. With whatever they're working on internally for their all-in-one VR HMD, keep in mind that the way they're going to run the software on that HMD is going to be completely different from what they handed us with Steam Deck. You know, we're probably going to be looking at a far more native build of whatever OS they're building for this thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it running on a similar chipset to what's in the Steam Deck, just with a more highly specialized build on it dedicated to VR support. Like they've stated that this is their intention, that this device is a stepping stone. And it makes sense. They worked directly with AMD and developed a custom chipset. If you go watch the teardown videos, when they wipe off that chip, that die has Valve etched in it, you know? So this is their baby and this is their future. They've put a lot into this project. I'm excited for what this is going to evolve into.
Same. Yeah, so that's my deck. Get one. It's awesome if you are enjoying playing games on the go, on the couch, because you want to play your backlog that you won't play, or where you don't want to get up from your couch to go to your PC to play those games. That's what the Steam Deck is for. On the go, I mean, they have put in here in the package. They have put in a list of recommendations where you can use it. On a submarine, on the toilet,
on the outside of the packaging,
waiting. This is the real package. Inside was
does it indicate on the outside?
We'll talk about that with the next segment when we go into that. Yeah, there it is right there.
It does. It does.
It does. Yup, and the shipping address clearly states that it comes from Valve.
Yeah. It says, for me, it said Valve Ingram Micro Netherlands or so.
Which is a great segue into the last thing we want to talk about. Steam Deck thefts. Oh, sadness. On the one side of it, we see this beautiful video from Valve of Gabe Newell delivering the first Steam Decks to the nearest customers, which is just beautiful. And then the dark side of the story. Dun, dun, dun. Steam Decks vanishing in transit.
And it's all because they put identifiable packaging on them. I mean, I think it's great that companies take the time and effort to make things flashy and memorable and something that you want to keep. Like, I still have my Index box because it has all of those cute, quirky little like Valve logos and things on the side of it. And I didn't really want to throw it away because that's unique. But at the same time, if somebody wanted to know what it was that was sitting on my porch, and they weren't sure if they wanted to steal it or not, all they have to do is look at it to see what it is.
Yep. That said, actually, Corbin, nobody's been able to answer this question for me yet. So one more thing about your Steam Deck. New Steam Deck smell. Was it the same as new Index smell?
I have to admit, it didn't smell as much as the Index. It was
Really?
less smell. It was less
smell. Was it similar, though? Or was it a different smell?
I would say a different, though.
Because new Index smell still blows my mind every time I open up a new face gasket or something. Like, Index has its own new device smell.
This has like
I've never smelled it anywhere else.
very, very little smell at all, to be honest. I mean, yes, it does have this kind of hot, warm air smell that's coming out of a fan or so. But other than that, barely a smell, really.
What's it taste like?
What's it taste like?
I'm curious if they did the astringent grossness that Nintendo did on the cartridges. Don't lick a Nintendo Switch cartridge. I don't recommend it.
It comes, though, with this carrying case, which is just inside this one. So there's no extra package.
So the case is what protected it in shipping?
Yeah, more or less, yes. So if you open this, there's just this... Oops, sorry. There's just this...
So your case has been tested. It works.
Yeah, this has been around the case, and the case is directly in this box without anything else. No further packaging. So yeah, this is the package of the Steam Deck itself. What they're shipping. All right, so yeah,
pirates want them.
Yeah. I think that's all I got to really say on the stolen Steam Deck thing. Just since it hit the news and it was happening to people. It was actually happening. People were just stealing it straight off their porch just because they knew what it was. Oh, Steam Deck, that's mine now. Like, my goodness.
Yeah, and Crane's right. Like, they've got those labels on pretty much everything.
Yeah. So you know when it's on the porch. So they need to be a little bit more discreet with packaging, I think.
Yeah, I can only hope that Valve can either work something out with the shipping companies, because that's where can it be stolen? Only when there are some transitions between stations. Otherwise, it's tracked, and somebody has. You should probably be pretty close to the area where it's being stolen, even, so you can track down where it got stolen, I guess.
Yeah. Well, more often than not, it's people stealing them right off of their porch. So someone will be watching someone's porch that gets a lot of deliveries regularly, and they'll just
So there's a little story I can tell about how I got my Steam Deck. So I totally knew with the German logistics delivery company when it was coming, because I got a tracking number. And I know that the driver is like, he's ringing at our house, but we have several flats here with several parties living here. And he's ringing. If the first one doesn't open real quick, he's ringing the next one, and somebody will open. Then opening the main door, putting the package inside, closing the main door, and leaving off again. And that's something I did not want to happen to the Steam Deck. Not at all. So what I did, that's a little bit crazy, but you might understand after you've read about the stolen Steam Decks. So what I've done, I've taken an old phone, I've put in the Orion app on that, which turns your phone into IP cam. And I was putting the cam onto a tripod on the window, looking at the parking place, so I could see while I was working on my second monitor when the driver is arriving. And when I saw the car coming, I was jumping down and tearing it out of his hands. It was mine. I didn't want anything to happen that somebody else was able to get.
Your Steam Deck from being stolen.
I stole it from myself. Yes.
Yes.
He straight up mugged the delivery driver, guys.
I think that's what we're gonna have to do when we watch out for our shockwave suits.
Ooh.
God.
And stay tuned next time in our next podcast. What are we calling this thing? Our next cast.
The next Fever Dreams
We're going
cast.
to talk in depth. Next Fever Dreams. We're going to talk in depth with Shantanu and Akshay of Shockwave, all about the Shockwave, and we'll cover some of the things that I did on my stream last week, and some of the things that you'll be able to do with yours, and hopefully have some things set up where you can poke us all live on stream while we're talking about it too.
I am gnawing at the walls waiting for the shipping indication on mine. It's been weeks since I got the notification where they're like, hey, finer details for your sizing. I'm like, oh, it's happening.
How tall are you? No, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, they're like, literally, give us these exact dimensions aside from just the size you picked. I'm like, okay, measuring tape, let's do this.
We cannot wait. Corby, you want to take us out?
Yeah. So this has been the Fever Dreams podcast, episode 14, season 3, episode 1. Next week, we are going to have Shockwave with us. This was the live recording on the 20th March of 2022. You can follow us on Twitch. That is Crindash, twitch.tv/Crindash. We have a shout out here. You can follow XypherOrion on twitch.tv/XypherOrion. We have a YouTube channel that is linked in the description below, where you can find this video later. See you all next week. I have been your host, Corbin78. Thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting for you.
As well. Twitch Corbin78.
Thank you very much. Have a good one. Have a good Sunday. See you next time. And
click that follow button, in fact. Or that follow button. That follow button.
All the follow buttons. Bye-bye.